All right, good evening. Good evening. I just wanted to first and foremost thank everybody for coming out. We do understand it is we have a little weather outside. But we're going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. And we're going to start by, and this is going to be a little different. I'm going to ask everyone to stand. I'm going to face the rear of the room. We're going to do the pledge of allegiance. Then we'll do the invocation first, excuse me. Because there is no flag in here, we'll face the front of the room, the rear of the room. The rear of the room, and do the pledge of allegiance, and then we'll continue the meeting. So if you could, Frank, if you could lead us in prayer, please.
That is great. Heavenly Father, we thank you for all of your blessings that you have restored upon us. We thank you for bringing us from 1 year into another. We thank you for this committee. We thank you for all the citizens of Madison. We ask that you continue to bless each and every family who are represented here. We ask that you continue to bless our city, bless our leaders, and whatever you see that we stand in the need of. And we just say thank you, Lord, for everything that you have done for us. We ask our blessings in your Son Jesus' name and for his sake. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If you could go ahead and go with roll call, please.
District 1, Curtis Potts is absent. District 2 is vacant. District 3, Billy Goodson.
Here.
District 4, Frank Fletcher.
Here.
District 5, Dwayne Kraft.
Here.
District 6, Rebecca Plum Franz. Here. District 7 is vacant. Chief of Police appointee, Rajiv Sharma.
Here.
Mayor's appointee, Mark Highsmith.
Present. Okay. Next, we'll move into the acceptance of the agenda.
Mark, I make a motion that we accept the agenda as published.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded. Is there any discussion? We'll vote by roll call vote.
Billy Goodson.
Yay.
Frank Fletcher.
Yay.
Dwayne Kraft.
Yay.
Rebecca, yay. Rajiv Sharma.
Yay.
Mark Highsmith.
Yay. Motion passes. This time we'll move to approval of our previous minutes, which I know is a little, believe it or not, it's October, but is there a?
So Mark, earlier I made one editorial or one comment on a date that said September and it should have said October to our published minutes. As far as I know, that's the only change that's been proposed. Other than that, I make a motion that with that change, a motion for the approval of our minutes.
It's been moved and properly second to accept our minutes from October with the proper edits. Is there any discussion? We'll go ahead and vote on that. Roll call vote as well.
Billy Goodson.
Yay.
Frank Fletcher.
Yay.
Dwayne Kraft.
Yay.
Rebecca Franz, yay. Rajiv Sharma.
Yay.
Mark Highsmith.
Yes. Okay. At this time, I know we had one that's already been submitted, but this is the time in which we open it up for public comments. Is there anyone? Well, I guess we can start with the first public comment, and that is from Heather Morgan, concerns about police department activities at its city council meetings. Heather, did you want to expand a little on that?
Oh, yes, so do we have like
You have 3 minutes.
3 minutes? Okay, do I just say?
Yeah, you can stand up.
Okay, yes, I have a concern of something I witnessed on the January 11th, city council work session. And all this to say is that, before I read this, that I'm hoping discussions will take place between law enforcement and city council so that safety can be maintained and disruptions reduced without, at best, discouraging citizens from attending and speaking out, and at worst, creating fearful citizens. What I witnessed was the citizens standing up trying to view the slide projection, and a uniformed armed officer came up and kind of moved her back. And it was, I'll admit at first I got a smile of it because I didn't like this person. I disagree with her a lot and she disrupts meetings a lot. But after I got over my initial oh ha ha, it was very disturbing. And I thought, this is not how a slight disturbance should be handled. And if it happened to me, I would have been terrified to have someone, come up to me in that way. And it was not even stated at the beginning what was allowed or not allowed. No, it wasn't been told that, oh, you cannot stand up in this meeting. She also was approached for whispering. It was a brief moment of, I don't know if it was loud, I can't remember if it was loud whispering, but it didn't go on for long, and it wasn't loud. And if this was her, he came up, got right in her face, and again, I was thinking I would be terrified, if the police, for whispering, imagine it's not just a school teacher coming up, this is an armed officer, because I whispered. Another thing I noticed was I had whispered earlier, and other people were whispering, and I feel like this person was targeted. And I don't know if it's because she has been disrupted, but I don't even consider what she was doing to be disruptive. And I saw others whispering. I saw a journalist get up and try to take a picture, and nothing was said to her. And so my concern is just that this is going to discourage people from coming. If they came and this is the first time they come to a meeting and they come and they see any small thing you do, an armed officer is coming at you. And we want people to be engaged. We want people to feel welcome at public meetings. We don't want them to be scared. And I feel like this person who it seems was targeted, she has been very vocal at city council meetings. And she said things that have upset some people and ruffled feathers. But if I had just seen this and knew a little bit, I thought, oh gosh, you can't speak out, because then you'll have the police on you for simply exercising your right to come to a meeting. So that's a concern. Again, I would like discussions to take place so we can, I know there has to be safety at meetings, but let's make sure our citizens are welcome and don't feel scared to attend those meetings. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay. The next comment is from Ms. Linda Cliff, and it is a question on stopping on your property and leaving, not returning.
Yes. Most people, myself and my ex-husband, we're very good friends, live in the same house. On a particular day, we both been home. I was leaving to go down the driveway, which the driveway is, according to Jack, is about not quite a quarter of a mile from our home to the end of the property, into the driveway. There were two individuals at a particular produce stand. One happens to be his son, who had committed assault just days prior. That didn't come out for a month. Coming down to the end of the driveway, you see the officers talking with them at a stand. You're not sure what's going on, so you go to back up. You go back to tell your ex-husband his son is being questioned, and the officers surround you. The lights go and surround you, no probable cause, no understanding what's going on. They tell you to get out of the car. They don't tell you why. They ask you if this is your name. You said it is. You've got several medical things going on because of the assault. This is now a matter of fact. And they ask if you've been drinking. And you said, no, I have not. They ask you to take a sobriety. You do it voluntarily. You even ask for a breath test because they're being somewhat aggressive. They never tell you why they stopped you. They're all surrounding you in a very public forum, a very public place on your private driveway. Not coming back into your driveway, leaving. And it could have been going right there to the mailbox. They never asked. Now, the officer then says, I'm going to arrest you for a DUI. And you said, I haven't been doing anything. And they said, well, this is what they were doing. You asked, can I call my ex-husband? No. Can I take a breathalyzer? No. Can you let me walk down my driveway home? No. So they arrest you. They take you to jail. Even there, there's no evidence of anything that's come forward. Now, the ex-husband comes and gets you out of jail, but you find out they towed your own car from your own property and impounded it. Now, you're walking through this particular charge at the hand of law enforcement, which I want to say it was not Madison PD, it was county. I've not seen those kind of actions from Madison. But both he and I then looked into the issue with the son coming unannounced and attacking the two people in their home, and they're quietly, not got a report in on the one, just a report in on the other that got stopped. How are you to feel about that? If you've gone to both parties have gone to various sources to find out where his statement is, where his eyewitness, and they have no record of it. They're not trying to call. So you're walking through this situations at the hand of a call from somebody who now is charged with assaulting two people. But still, if you're having to walk through this, so they're giving you no alternative but to go to jail on your own property. So if you're not returning home, they didn't see you swerving, you weren't doing anything wrong. If they don't take a breathalyzer, not sure, you tell them these people that called in is a retaliation. How should you feel about law enforcement doing that? And yet they're still squelching part of the testimony from the individual's own father, Jack Cliff, who has been farming here his whole life. How are we to feel about law enforcement? He couldn't be here tonight, I am, and this is the bold step, I've never been to one of these meetings. This really happened, there's a lot of detail, and I come here just wondering because I happened to see your news story tonight, and I've been praying through this whole thing, and I do not want to have a bad feeling toward law enforcement, but in my opinion and his opinion, he told me to say crooked is crooked. He gave me permission to say that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, the next topic is from Jocelyn Moore, and it is just the timing of the topic. Questions and suggestions of the citizens of this community can come together. The goal is for everyone, police and citizens, to make it home safely. Is there any?
I'm right here. I'm prepared, yeah. Jocelyn Brower, District 4, Taylor's Crossing Subdivision. First of all, I want to thank you for this topic of discussion. However, the timing is unfortunate with the recent brutalization and death of Tyree Nichols. I hope you will give respect to the victim of this crime and acknowledge the police are not perfect. There are bad apples. I grew up never having to hear these types of suggestions of what to do at a police stop. Many privileged people have not, and there have been no issues. Not for me. I want you to know that this is not the case for many Black, brown, and less fortunate citizens. I heard for the first time stories about keeping your hands visible at all times, both hands, keeping your registration information in the side of the car door in a plastic baggie, not in the glove compartment, and of course, never, never run from police. Now, even if you've heard it, how do you feel when immediately surrounded by multiple police? What does this happen? Why does this happen in some cases and not others? Will you also address issues like if an officer turns on his lights in a dark area, how far can you drive to a well-lit one before pulling over? How about suggesting that we have our own dash cams installed? Can this be a taxpayer funded, same as police body cam? What are the legalities of asking a police officer his badge number and why you were pulled over? After we go over all these types of issues and suggestions, what if the stop still goes wrong? Perhaps someone makes a bad decision and at the worst, the citizen is killed. What are the rules for the family, the mom to follow so they can see the body cam and find out why their son or loved one didn't make it home? Yes, these are tough questions, but this is where we are at here in Madison. We are not perfect, none of us. I hope everyone in this room is here to make things better. We need peace. We need our community to come together. Listen, interact with each other. We may need to change the way we do things, starting with this meeting. Perhaps citizens present a topic in the future with police listening in the audience, as I've discussed with Mark Heisner. We truly need to talk to each other and have real back and forth conversations and discussions. We need to do everything we can to make sure we all make it home at the end of the day. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Any other comments? Okay. We'll move now, excuse me, we'll now forward with our committee reports. On the Curtis is not here. District 2 is vacant. Bill?
Nothing to report.
Frank?
Nothing to report.
Dwayne?
Nothing to report.
Rebecca?
No, nothing to report.
Rashid?
And nothing to report.
And then me. I can't let it go without nothing to report. I think that, first of all, I want to say that, believe it or not, we've been trying to have this meeting since October. We've been trying to have this exact meeting since October. But we've had several weather delays because of that. 3 to be exact. First of all, I'm just happy to see the team, almost the entire team back together. And I'm definitely happy to see you here this evening. It is very important, and the reason why we have this committee is for us to discuss issues and for us to work through situations so that we as a community continue to grow. You'll hear me say this over and over again until they tell me to, or they move me on, is that I think we live in a great community, but every community deserves to be better. And I know that with your help, notice I said that with your help, we can do that. But it's gonna take us working together to do that, not against each other. And I know that we don't always agree, and that's what the beauty of it, and that's what I love about the team here is, believe it or not, we don't all agree. We don't. But one thing we have agreed on is that is to always walk forward and look to find solutions on ways that we can continue to improve our community. And that's why we're still up here serving. So that's enough of me. Yes.
Sorry to intrude at this point. I guess a couple of comments that were made. Can we kind of walk back into some of those public comments a little bit? There might be some information that I think we've been made aware of through our training that maybe a common citizen, there is no such thing as a common citizen, but that some people may not be aware of. I'm saying especially in your case, police, I know we were informed about from a Madison perspective, what to do if you feel like an interaction with police officers has not gone well. And in Madison, Chief, correct me when I speak out of turn here, there is an officer that is assigned that responsibility, internal affairs, what do we call it?
Office of Professional Standards.
There you go. Office of Professional Standards, that a complaint like that would go to. Just for clarification, your incident happened in the county. So what you said, it was not Madison PD. No. Yes. And thanks for that clarification too. And but that helps. But I would say if something like that happened here, that's who that report would go to. And then kind of what we will walk through is then they're going to go through like an investigation to determine, was that encounter within policy, was it done correctly, to the point of they might pull body cam, they might look at things to address that. So, wow, his name just flooded my head, Kevin, the sheriff of Madison County, I would probably think, and I don't know, Chief, if you know, I don't know if there is a similar office at the county structure. I would imagine there is, that some, comments like that would go to.
We did. We both went to Kevin Turner on Jack's request. He saw his report, and all it states, they took our statement together, and then individually. His is nowhere to be seen. They gave us 2 investigators because it was 2 incidents I'm talking about where his son came down there. We have been given various information. Every time Jack's requested, we went to Kevin Turner's office because he wanted to know, where's my statement? I didn't get hurt, but she did. I witnessed the whole thing, and they have they can't find it. And the report under him, the investigator said, he said he had no awareness of it. He talked to put a call in to Captain Bates. They keep calling me. I said, I'm not calling y'all. This is Jack. He's wanting to know. He called various elements, even took time to go down there. And I can understand that, being 70-something years old and somebody grabs you and shakes you and these kind of things. There's 2 incidences. We think the one was done to kind of divert from the other. That's just personal opinion. But I appreciate what you're saying, and that's why I came tonight.
So, with that being said, what we can do is, and what we're going to do with all the comments is we take all the comments back and we go through them, and then from the comments we go and we figure out ways in which we can go out and working with the Madison Police Department and Chief and our city officials to figure out what is the best way to address those things. And that's what we'll go through with all the comments that we receive. Maybe I didn't address that.
It's unfortunate that one is county, so I mean, we hear it. Chief and the other officers that are here have heard it. I mean, there's not, obviously we don't have any recourse to step into the county to do that, to work some, and that's really not even what we're about. We're more geared towards the policies and things that go on, but I appreciate you sharing that, and I hope citizens know that when there is a problem between them and law enforcement, there is a way in this city to address it. I'm not going to say that everybody's always going to be happy with a resolution. It should be a just resolution, though. It should be based on the facts, and that's what drives responsible policing, and that's, I think, our expectation as citizens.
And from my heart, I thank y'all for doing this, because it does put fear. It's caused me to fear. It's hard for us to be friends, even though it's a miracle that we're good friends after a long marriage and divorce. We are, and it's just a sad situation because you learn as you go. The next steps are more aggressive. You never want to do that. You always want to try to resolve.
Yes,
Mark, thanks for that indulgence.
Excuse me. We're going to go into old business now, and based upon our bylaws and the way the resolution was written for this committee, is every year we're to vote and elect a new chair, vice chair, and secretary, and it is that time. So at this time, are there any? We'll start with the chair. Are there any nominations for chair?
Mark, I make a recommendation for the name of Mark Highsmith.
I second that.
It's been moved and properly seconded. Are there any other nominations? I love it.
You can always vote no.
Yeah. I accept the nomination. And since there are no other opponents running, Mark Highsmith will stay as the chair. Next, we're moving to the vice chair.
Mark, I nominate Billy to be our vice chair.
I don't know if to second that. It's been moved and properly second to nominate Billy as the vice chair. Are there any other nominations? Since there are no other nominations, Billy will assume the role as the vice chair. And then secretary.
I nominate,
A second.
Wow, we went to the end.
It's been moved and properly second for Rebecca to be the secretary. Are there any other nominations? Since there are no other nominations, we'll move on. Rebecca.
Come on.
All right. So at this point now, since we've handled the old business, now we're moving to new business. And it may be the reason some of you may be out this evening, and that is working with Chief. We came up with the thought, of how we can best or better educate our citizens if you are ever stopped at a police stop. And we are, and Chief is taken upon to bring out some officers to kind of talk us through expectations, what we should see, and from the police officer's perspective, as well as from a citizen's perspective. Chief, if you could, I would love to turn it over to you at this point.
Thanks for coming out tonight. It's a rainy, cold night. So, just to start us off, we're primarily going to be talking about traffic stop because most of our confrontations happen on a traffic stop. Nobody's happy to get pulled over, and a lot of emotions are flying there. We recognize that, we deal with that. In fact, our policy states that if an officer stops you, the first thing he does, or she does, is give you their name, and then tell you the reason for being stopped. Some of the things we want to avoid when we go up there is to immediately walk up to the car and say, do you know why I stopped you? That just invites an argument. Why ask that? If I knew why you stopped me, sometimes they'll say, yeah, I know exactly why you stopped me. I ran the red light back there. That's what I hear. But it doesn't always go that way. So we decided to short circuit that argument from the beginning by first identifying yourself. That gets us away from what's your badge number and all that. By the way, that badge number, that's all TV. We don't go by badge numbers. Badge numbers that we have are only for inventory purposes. We go by names. We have a small enough department to where we know each and every officer. Even if you went up and described what the officer looked like and didn't get his name, we know exactly who it is. But the second thing is once they introduce themselves, now you're kind of humanizing yourself when you go up there. And secondly, telling the reason for stopping you takes some of that argument out. Sometimes we get the response of, no, I didn't. Well, one of the things we don't want to do on a traffic stop is we don't want to litigate the case on the side of the road. That's what courts do. In most cases, officers, if it's a pretty minor violation, will stop you and either give you a verbal or written warning. But if it was a serious enough traffic violation, and I'm sure you'll agree with me that living here in Madison, you see them every day, that we're probably going to cite you. If you did run that red light, if you're that fourth car through that red light, I'm sure you've seen that before too. Does the train go through the light? Following too closely. Driving around, looking at your phone, and texting instead of looking up at the road. Well, guess where most of our crashes happen? Because of some type of driver inattention. Your eyes are everywhere except for where they're supposed to be, not looking in front of you, looking out through that windshield. All right? We may cite you. Sometimes we'll cite you if you want to be argumentative because you have not accepted responsibility for what you did, and maybe a good reminder from a judge to drive properly might be exactly what you need, so we end up issuing a summons. But the traffic stop goes something like this. Pull up, walk up here. Hi, I'm the Chief Candy Police Department. I stopped you because you broke the stop sign back there. May I see your driver's license and registration, please? and proof of insurance. These are things we want to make sure that you have, because everybody's required to carry insurance in the state of Alabama. Everybody's required to have a valid registration for their vehicle to show that the vehicle is properly registered and that registration is up to date. And you must have a valid driver's license in order to drive. Driving is not a right, it is a privilege granted by the government. The government pays for the roads, albeit with your tax money. But as a part of that privilege, you've agreed, it's kind of a social contract, you've agreed that you will test to show that you know the laws of the road and how to drive. And for passing that test, the government grants you a license with the privilege to drive. I want to state that again. A driver's license is a privilege. That's one of the reasons why if you get stopped and we suspect you DUI and you get arrested for DUI, you are subjected to something known as implied consent, which means that you must take a blood or breath test. If you don't do it, there's a separate charge for unreasonable refusal to take that test. It's an administrative charge, it's not a criminal.
What was it, term you said? What was that?
Refusal?
Implied consent.
They imply consent.
Implied.
Implied consent. Implied.
Implied.
Right. That's part of the privilege to drive. All right. So we're going to ask for these documents on the traffic stop. We're not going to engage with you on the side of the road in a big argument. All right. A lot of times, if you want to get a ticket, argue with the officer. We'll end the argument by just going back to our car, issuing the summons, and then coming back. And here's the other thing: we have something now called e-ticketing. In the old days, we had the multi-carbon copy, or we asked you to press hard when you were signing it, and that leads to another argument. I'm not signing because I didn't do that. Well, we explained to you that signing the summons is not admitting guilt. It's simply saying that you will show up in court on the assigned court date. That's all it is. But yet people will argue and argue and argue that they didn't do anything wrong and they're not signing something. Well, in the old days, if you didn't sign something, what you're essentially saying is that you're not coming to court. And if you're telling me to my face you're not coming to court, guess what happens? Anybody want to take a guess?
You get to go into that police car.
You get to take a ride in a police car until we can assure that you will show up in court. Can you imagine how stupid it is? Some people are so hard-headed that they would rather go to jail and have to post a bond just to ensure that I didn't run that record, I didn't do that, just to ensure that they were right. Well, you have a right to state your case, but that right is in court, not on the side of the road in the traffic stop. Okay. I mean, I don't mean to sound harsh, but we're dealing with a lot of stuff when we stop you on the side of the road, especially if it's very busy roads, like say at Highway 72 or County Line or something like that, where we're standing there next to your car and people are going right by us at 60, 70 miles an hour. And again, that's not a good place to be, and that's not a good place to have an argument. Okay. So that kind of gets us started in what we're talking about here. We wanted to use this particular topic because, again, a lot of these encounters would never go sideways if we simply just get cooperation with the realization from the public that we ask your role to be accepting of the fact that this is not the place to argue. If I really feel I didn't do anything wrong, my case is made in front of the judge, not in front of the officer that's looking to issue the assignment. Okay. So, turn it over to my office here. Now, what we did bring back, because we know that everybody knows how to drive properly here in Madison, we brought back a traffic meeting. One of the things that we looked at when we went through our statistics was that we had an unusually high number of crashes in 30 square mile city. All right, and just in day-to-day observations driving around, our officers probably weren't as diligent as they should have been in the last couple of years. I think it started with COVID and it just kind of dropped off from there. And really getting aggressive on traffic enforcement. And as a result, if we're not going to be aggressive in doing it, and people see that they can get away with breaking smaller rules, then you're going to start breaking more and more bigger rules all the way down the line. And when we looked at our traffic crash statistics, they were kind of pathetic. And we said, what can we do to make this a safer place to drive? Well, one of the things we did was decide to bring back the traffic unit. And right now we have 4 officers. We just selected a sergeant for the unit today. I'm not telling you who the new sergeant is because we haven't told them yet. But to attack the traffic issue here and to specifically target certain troubled areas. If any of you have been down County Line around the time that school starts in the morning, you may see a lot of people flashing lights next to these guys. So I'll go ahead and turn it over. This is Officer Tim Ford, Officer Jeff Landon.
Thanks for having me out here tonight. I worked here from 2007 to 2018, and there wasn't a CSC at the time. So this is something relatively new. This is my first meeting. I just came back to work here back in May of 22. So came back for about 6 months on night shift, and then I got moved to traffic. I had already spent 10 years in the traffic unit before, so it's not new to me. There was a time period while I was gone, I went to work for it's good to be back doing the same things we used to do. And as the chief touched on a lot of stuff I wanted to talk about anyway. We, just looking at the crash numbers, we had over 1,500 crashes in 2022. And when I left, we were probably closer to 1,000 or 1,100 roughly per year. That was just a ballpark estimate. That was about the average. So obviously the population has gone up a little bit, but the infrastructure has not kind of kept up with that. So there's a lot of traffic congestion. And a lot of traffic congestion causes a lot of angry drivers, and a lot of angry drivers causes a lot of traffic violations. So, you know, chances are that most of those people have met us in the last couple of months here. Quite a bit. Our ticket numbers have ramped up quite a lot. So, how many of you are regularly attending these meetings? I know there were some people that didn't say here though. But did anybody here just come specifically for the topic tonight? Yes, at least a couple of them. Okay, good. I hope I can answer some of your questions. And I'd like to start off by asking what some of your concerns are.
Well, listening to Chief talk, he initially explained about the traffic when people get pulled over, and that's a question I had. If someone looks up and they see lights behind them, what are the cops' expectations for them to pull over? A lot of people try to drive until they see a safe place. Obviously, out here on the highway, a lot of citizens don't know what is safe. They sometimes in their mind say, well, if I pull over right here, this isn't safe for myself or the police officer. What are the expectations that the police have when someone looks up and they see those lights? What do you expect the citizen to do, and what kind of judgment does that citizen get to make as far as this is safe for me to pull over? I guess that would kind of be an initial question.
Okay. So it seems like you're asking how far do you drive before we expect you to stop?
Well, yes, because you may be on a busy highway and you may say, well, I can pull up here maybe 500 yards and I know it's clear, or I'm on University, or I'm out here. Just kind of getting an idea of what that officer is there.
Well, we use County Line Road as an example because that is one of our most traveled roads, and so we probably make the most traffic stops up there. We have 3 school zones back to back. We have crossing guards that stand out there, and the speed limit is relatively high. So it drops in half for a school zone, so we've got cars flying, we double the speed limit during the school time. So let's say we stop the car out there and, you know, that vehicle, whenever we turn blue lights on, the state law requires you to pull to the right side of the road and stop immediately, okay? So the further you keep driving, if we wanted you to stop somewhere else, we would have waited to turn the lights on. And then a siren is a pretty good indicator that normally, if we turn the lights on, we'll only use the siren to get your attention if you're not reacting to us turning the lights on. Or if we want to kind of instruct you to move a little bit or stop sooner. I've had a lot of people and they're not running from us or anything, they just think, oh, this isn't safe, and they turn their flashers on, and they drive a mile down the road with good intentions. But, you know, a lot of other people do that too. Drunk drivers do that quite a bit. They'll, you know, not pull over. People that are hiding drugs or guns in their car will do the exact same thing. But then good people, good honest folks do it too. But for us, from our standpoint, while you are driving a mile up the road and we're hitting the siren and trying to get you to pull over, what's going through our mind, do you think?
I don't know, that's why I was asking, I would assume,
Well, put yourself in the driver's seat of the patrol car, what would you think?
like you said, I would think, kind of what the chief said initially, they probably trying to go somewhere safe, but obviously I don't, work in this line of work,
Yeah.
you see the worst
Right.
people. Most citizens, they don't see that every day, so I would think as a police officer, I might think, well, they don't want to, I guess, initially follow my commands, I guess.
And that's
Or they're
one of the
trying to find
misconceptions that a lot of critics of the way we operate, they put everybody in their perspective, you know what I'm saying? So everybody looks at things from their point of view, so if it was, somebody that was driving on the road and refused to stop, they would think, well, he was just pulling over, looking for a safe space, when in fact, he was the guy hiding the guns or the drugs or the drunk driver or something like that. There's many different reasons, and a lot of citizens don't understand the different type of people that we deal with. They think everybody's just like that, and they're not. They know that's not true, but they don't think of it that way when they're in it. So, does that answer your question? I know you had another part of it, how far to go.
Correct, and that's kind of my question, just, and you kind of answered it, Dan, you're saying that once a police officer puts his lights on, at that point, you're expecting that citizen to pull over and stop right there once they see those lights.
Yes, sir, we do. And the other reason too is that I've had people, even let's say kind of on where the overpass is, they'll continue to go down, but then stop on the blind side of the overpass instead of stopping where I was originally hitting the lights and siren, where it would have been a lot safer. So they'll actually drive into more dangerous areas that they think is safer because they might have been looking for street lights or something, when actually it's a blind hill that we're gonna get hit on. So it's just something you got to consider. And I know that over the course of the last few years, people are a little bit more on guard than what the police. The national news has done nothing good to help the interaction between police officers and citizens. But a meeting like this hopefully can. I wish there were more people. What we're saying.
Yeah, I was gonna add, I know at night, especially with a female driver or anything like that, we will turn our lights on, stuff like that, but if you turn your flashes on, it's common knowledge for police officers that, just going over. It's common knowledge that, if she turns like, somebody hits their caution lights, they're at least kind of letting us know that, if you police acknowledge that you're gonna stop. And so if you are, there's a stretch on Catalan where it's kind of dark. So if you're driving to like the next well-lit area, I would tell my daughter growing up, hey, wait till you get to a safe spot as far as a well-lit area and stuff like that too. Because as you know, there are people who act like they are the police and try to, play police officer too. So we do want y'all to be safe in that regard as well too. So especially at night.
That's a great point, because I told my wife that as well, that if you get pulled over and I'm not there, try to get somewhere where it's light, it's visible, because obviously, like you said, just as though you guys are thinking about safety, civilians also are thinking about their spouses or themselves as well, so that's a good point. Yeah, thank you for that.
Turn on your caution lights. That's a huge indicator for us to let us know.
I don't know if this is right, wrong, or indifferent, but if I'm having stop, especially at night, okay, I'm happy to stop, but if I am, I just roll my window down just a little bit. I put my stuff out, my driver's license, registration, my insurance card, and go, there you go, sorry, don't know what I did, I'm sure you'll tell me that, we're good, okay?
And then from my point of view, especially, if it is late at night, the first thing I'm gonna assume is that you're trying to mask the odor of alcoholic beverages on your breath, the odor of narcotics. That may not be the case at all, but that's our perspective.
I can understand that.
So I think, why is this late at all? Because I'm friendly to everybody I stop.
I know, but I'm scared.
And that is, that's something we can take into consideration too. But, you're not too scared to be right here with you now. So even if I stop,
No, but
after I
I'm
talk to
talking
you
about,
for,
I was driving down.
after I talk to you,
County Line Road down
for a
to
minute or
Rock
two, I think.
Never knew, man, you know.
If nothing was there, you'd probably roll with it. Generally, and this takes a lot of people by surprise, I actually, I'm over the passenger side of the car more often than not. And it takes a lot of people by surprise, but I actually come to the passenger window a lot. There's a lot of reasons we do that. It's just safer over there for us. You're on the road. You see in the car better. People are armed, got guns. There's multiple people in the car. It's usually easy for us. And so I'm always trying to stop somebody and keep them safe and myself safe. Because our biggest threat on the traffic stop, believe it or not, is not someone jumping out shooting us. It's actually getting hit in the car. So, that's one of our main concerns. More officers die getting hit by cars and traffic stops than they do by gunfire or felonious assault. So, Dentistry, is that? Yeah. I think some other things.
Yeah, but just to reiterate, but first off, thanks for the question, that's an excellent question. The big thing too that we need to emphasize, and Tim mentioned it, but pull to the right. I don't know how many people have just stopped in the middle of the road or pulled to the left, and speaking of county line, you've got that one turn lane that goes all the way down there, pulls into that and stops. And so that forces the officer to have to get out with people whipping past them at 60, 70 miles an hour on both sides now to walk up to the car. I've had people before that I've stopped that kept going until they finally stopped. And so I didn't realize you were trying to stop me. It doesn't matter. State law says if an emergency vehicle is behind you with lights and siren, you were to pull to the right and yield the right away to that emergency vehicle. So if you guys will remember that, pull it to the right. Our officers are trained and they've got enough experience to pretty much know when somebody is looking for a safe spot to pull over. So they're going to be patient enough to wait for you to get to a spot where you're comfortable to pull over and do that. What we've seen with a lot of people though is they just continue going, and then we have to wonder, sometimes they run from us at high speed, sometimes they just keep going, as Tim said. Usually the one that just keeps going at either the same speed or a slower speed is probably going to be intoxicated. And then you've got ones that you see that keep hitting the brakes and hitting the brakes and looking for someplace to pull over, and that's always somebody that's looking to find some place where they can bail out and run and make it stop. So we see all these different visual clues, but everybody in here is a law-abiding citizen, and the first thing I want to reiterate is make sure that when you stop, you're pulling to the right, and then pull someplace where you do feel comfortable. All right, some citizens will do that because they actually have the safety of the officer in mind. Also, that I wanted to pull someplace where you didn't have to have all those cars coming up behind you. And I really appreciate that. Everybody that's ever done that for me, it's never got to take a photo. Let me do that.
So, let's move it from County Line Road to Hughes Road. Just a minute, please. Everybody knows that going to Hughes Road is like, when you enter Hughes Road, you're taking your life in your hands, and you just say, thank you God for my life thus far, because I may not make it back home.
If you're turning left.
Do not.
If you're turning left.
I was turning right in the neighborhood
It
today.
is crowded.
And a car went around me on the side of the road. Had my neighbor on and everything. I was like, what on earth? And then, it was right before I came here. I was like, what on earth? But I just have always thought that because the county line, huge road out there is neighborhood, that it would, I was oblivious until tonight, that it would not be okay if I passed the Meadowlands and went on up to wherever that next little neighborhood is, past the Meadowlands out there, and turned in there, because I would think, turning in to here to, y'all can get off the road, I can get off the road, all that kind of stuff. Because I'm gonna stop.
Yes, ma'am. And this is something a lot of people don't consider, but we run lights and sirens to hot calls.
I'm sorry?
We run lights and sirens to in progress calls,
Right.
where there's an emergency.
Right.
We have to pass a ton of cars along the way. And, we appreciate the hazard hazards and the slow driving to pull over. But when we're trying to pass a car and they hit their hazards and they think we're pulling over and they're driving real slow, and it's, you know, we're just trying to get around them too, so that's why pulling to the right away. And then if we stop you there,
That's why I'm going to
Greg,
have you, because I'm thinking,
you know, if we do stop somewhere, there's more traffic, we can get on our PA system or just walk up and have you move, and I do that a lot. We won't stay in that spot, very long if we can turn off something. And generally, it's really, really hard to get a car to stop exactly where you want. They always go too far, or they stop immediately, or something, break or something. So that's something that's a dynamic situation, you just kind of gotta roll with. But it's nothing to be afraid of. You know, I mean, it's, there's a good possibility if there's blue lights behind you, we're trying to get around. Doesn't happen. Yes, I'm sorry. Yes, sir.
If there is an individual in the vehicle who is carrying a weapon,
Okay.
do you recommend that the driver says, I'm carrying, or so-and-so is carrying, or the opposite, when you do the stop, do you ask the driver, do you have a weapon?
That's an interesting question. If you ask 10 officers, you get 10 different answers. Me personally, I generally don't ask people, because we're in Alabama, a lot of people conceal carry. If there's nothing that gives me a bad feeling about that person, I don't even ask. We're not trying to strip people of their, you know, their firearms and stuff. I mean, it's because probably half the cars we stop, I'll show, and it'll show somebody has a pistol permit. I don't even ask them one. Unless I think that firearm has something to do with some other crime, I generally don't say you got the guns in the car. But then if I get a suspicion that there's something else going on there, smell drugs, see something that's illegal, then I'll start asking. If it gets to that point with you where I'm asking about your guns and stuff, then it's just me personally. Normally there's something else other than the reason I stopped you, okay? You've done something, or I've detected something that's unpleasant, and not what you call routine. But different officer, he may ask everybody, you know, just in the sake of consistency, everybody gets stopped with a firearm. There's nothing wrong with doing that. This is not my practice.
You don't think it would be appropriate for any driver who's carrying to just tell the officer, oh, by the way, I have what?
Oh, no, so that's fine, and I would recommend that. People tell us that a lot. But some officers handle that differently too. They want to take your gun out, unload it and all this stuff. Me personally, I don't think there's a reason for all that, or even drawing it out of the holster. And we see a lot more people carrying concealed, especially now this year, because there's no permit required. So we've got, you know, there's probably a gun in every car we stop. So it's nothing out of the ordinary, because every situation we go to, there's a gun there anyways, and it's ours, which could become someone else's really quickly. And you know, so it's not unexpected. It's nothing we get too jumpy about.
Yeah. So you ask, that's fine.
So if you get that bad feeling about someone, would you call in to see if they have been issued a permit? I mean, at this point, I think, like you said, there's no, you can open, I mean, you.
The permits are relevant at this point.
Would you ever do that? Would you ever call?
No, it shows me, if I run them on our computers, will show in the car.
Will
Yes, ma'am.
show if that person has registered.
Yes, not registered a firearm or anything. They'll show us they have a valid pistol permit. That makes sense. So
You can check that immediately.
it shows us, yes. Just the same as it would show if your driver's license is valid, it'll show me if you got a pistol permit. And I hardly ever even really pay attention to it, honestly.
Does it show if your insurance is valid too?
It does. If we run the tag, you can check it. It will show if insurance is valid. That's another thing we used to write a lot of tickets for insurance, and that technology has changed that a lot. So we are able to check insurance. Still required to have proof of insurance either in your car on paper or on an electronic device, a tablet or phone, something like that. But we can check it to see if it's valid. There are times if you recently changed your policy, it'll show that whatever was on file is not valid, and you will have, you know, say a different company that's current, then we need to see it. So any out-of-state tags though, we cannot. We cannot check insurance on out-of-state tags. You can check if the tag is current through different means, but the insurance is only attached to Alabama tags. driving records are only attached to Alabama driver's license. So we stop somebody that has a Tennessee license, we see those a lot, or Mississippi, Georgia, the surrounding states. We can't tell if they've had 10, 20, 30 tickets in the past, if this is the first time they've ever been to look.
That would be, I don't know, but the other states, would that like Mississippi, Tennessee and all that? If you're a Mississippi driver and you're stopped in Mississippi, they can tell if your insurance is valid there or not.
Probably in the state budget.
Mississippi probably would.
I wouldn't use them as an example.
I can say that.
But yeah, I don't know about that, but at least for here, you know, with an Alabama license, when I swipe it through my card reader, it'll show me driving records. It'll show me a criminal charge that you had through Alabama. Our new system won't show me any out-of-state things you've done. It'll show me driving records, and that's something we really usually look at to consider if we're gonna write somebody a ticket or what. There's a lot that plays into that. We still have discretion on that.
Question back here.
Yes.
Actually, I would like you to walk us through, as a police officer, what an ideal stop looks like that's going to keep both the citizen and the police officer safe. Just step by step. So you turn on those blue lights, we pull over to the right immediately. What happens step by step from that point? What should the citizen be doing to ensure their safety and your safety?
We're gonna, actually set up a little like role play for you a little bit. I just want to try to answer these last couple of questions before we got to that. I'll get into that. You had one more thing.
Well, I was, since more of a after, since permanent carry is now legal in Alabama, what's the state of the police department on, you know, with respect to stopping people, you know, approaching the car? Have they any difference in your procedure?
No. When we had OP carry become a thing 7, 8 years ago, the first month probably, I seen a lot of people open carry, and they almost kind of went away. You rarely see that anymore. And even if we do, it's not something that we even really do. Unless that person's involved in some type of crime, or we think they're involved in a crime, or gonna be involved in, we're just committing a crime, it's a whole different story. But otherwise, they're just law-abiding citizens. And the same thing with the car. I mean, you have, you know, everybody has the right to carry a firearm and protect themselves. And that's one of the great things about Alabama. So we don't want to bring on that, you know, honestly, we don't. Does that answer your question? Okay. How many of you have been pulled over recently? Or at all? All? Yeah. Well, who had a bad experience with it? Give me 1 second. I'll give you two parts. You had a bad experience with it. Anybody else? You did? All right. If you want to tell us a story, you're more welcome to. Maybe I can kind of give you my opinion on it, or tell you how we would have handled this one.
Well, I got stopped, and question was, whose truck is this? I said, it's mine.
Who stopped you? What department?
Huntsville Traffic, City.
Okay, so Huntsville.
Yeah, this was Huntsville.
How long ago was it?
4 or 5 years ago.
Okay, so fairly recently.
Yeah, but the thing of it is, he wanted to know whose truck it was. And I said, it's mine. And I said, what did you stop me for? He said, we were just suspicious about this truck. And I said, what about this truck that made you suspicious? He said, what you need to do is to be quiet. Well, that, I said, officers, I said, if you are stopping me and I have broken the law, I said, you need to give me a ticket or let me go home. I'll go wherever I'm going. He says, well, where's your registration? and glove top, and give him registration, give him my driver's license. He didn't write me a ticket. He just kind of pitched my stuff back into the truck. And I said, why did you stop me? And again, he said, you look suspicious. Until this day, that's all I got from him. But the thing of it is, sometimes when people provoke you, it'll cause you to do something a little bit different. And I do want to say this, when you were talking about these weapons, I make sure if I've got my weapon in my truck, as officer, I've got a weapon in the console or in the glove compartment. So if you want to, and the reason I do that is because of stereotyping. And that's why I got stopped. There's no doubt about that. But I'll say, you at liberty to go in my glove box and get my registration. Because when you get provoked, or to keep from being provoked or saying something you don't have to, I think it's always better for you to hold your hands up and not do anything that will cause them to go off with you. And you know, sometimes when you're an adult, and more especially a guy like me, I'm a Vietnam veteran. I go through some things, and some things just don't. Plus, I'm 74 years old. Some things I don't like being treated like a kid. So, but and not only that, I've had that to happen over the years several times.
I'm glad you mentioned being treated like a kid, because I've had citizens tell me that, you know, they were telling stories similar to yours, and especially outside of work, when people know you're a police officer, they want to tell you their story. You know, this is what happened, similar to what you said. And so I've learned a lot from just listening to people. And, you know, that story specifically, I've heard over and over again. One of the problems with it is, an officer doesn't tell you the reason that they stopped you, a specific reason, which we're supposed to. But you're left to guess and form your own conclusion on why I'm stopped. Because it looks suspicious, that's not a good excuse. You know? Or if we just had a home invasion over here, and we're looking for a red truck with a black male driver, and then you drove by, and there you were in a red truck, and you fit the description because a 74-year-old offender just came out of his house, armed, and then I stopped you, and you're not the guy, it's my duty to explain that to you, and not just say, you need to shut your mouth and look suspicious. You know what I'm saying? That's a valid reason to stop him. But, hey, this, you know, you're in the wrong neighborhood, so you don't fit this neighborhood or something like that. Obviously, that's not legal.
So the legal standard for stopping someone on a traffic stop is something known as reasonable suspicion. I've had people before say, what's the probable cause for the stop? We don't need probable cause, that's a higher standard. It's reasonable suspicion. There's no real legal definition for it, but essentially it's more than a mere hunch, in that a reasonable person would believe that crime is about to be, or has been committed. So we have to have a reasonable suspicion that some type of either traffic offense or crime was committed. We have to be able to articulate that not only to the person, but in court as well. We have to have a valid reason for stopping.
So what happens in this scenario to the officer? What can he do now? There's no reasonable suspicion. Right?
How long ago was this?
I mean, a person like him in that situation.
Something like that, I would, after that stop, I would ask the officer's name, ask the officer, if you feel strong enough about it, you may say, can you get a supervisor up here? I want to talk to your supervisor. If they say no, well, I need your name at least, and then immediately go back and call their internal affairs or professional standards, wherever it is. You can even ask to speak to the supervisor on duty right now about what happened, because if the officer's doing that to you, he's done it to other people too. And that's not what he expects for the behavior of the police officer.
Did you get a ticket or anything? You just stopped, you figured out who you were, let us
Yeah, it
go.
was.
But the thing of it is, you know, if I hand you my driver's license, you don't need to pitch it back to me. You should give it back to me.
That's the thing where you touched on being treated like a child. You were disrespectful,
Well,
and I'm sorry for that, you know, I'm glad it wasn't our part of the future.
you know, and that's why I use that.
But the people that we deal with, and that's something we have to remind ourselves, we see some pretty bad people that we deal with on a daily basis. So when you deal with good people, you gotta turn it off. We stop a lot of good people for traffic dollars, not fine, you know? But on traffic stops, 99.9% of the people we deal with are good folks. They just get traffic dollars. So it's really hard to turn that off because the officer that stops you may have just came from a domestic where he seen, you know, somebody's wife beat up, or something like that, and a lot of folks don't understand that. And one thing we have to constantly remind ourselves is that that may be the only interaction you ever have along with. Your entire opinion of cops in general may be based on that one way that I ever reacted or talked to you on my back.
If we could, before we go to another question, because the library is pretty hard about their time.
Yeah.
I would like for us to do the demonstration, because that way we make sure that we get a good visual understanding, and then it allows us to answer any questions.
Okay.
Post that, if we could.
Yeah, we can actually do two. I'll do a traffic stop similar to where I would perform it, and also landing in the okay. So we do differ a little bit. We just need a driver. Okay. You're on perfect car. All right, so what did I stop you for? You get to pick what your violation
Speeding.
Run a stop sign.
is. Ran a stop sign. Of course, he'll never.
Hey, whoa.
He's never gonna admit the stop sign I go too well. When I stop a car, the first thing I'll do, let's say this driver right here did run a stop sign. I may position my car kind of at an angle, depending on if it's day or night. Okay. Nighttime, I have lights on the light bar that can kind of light up the inside of the car with. So when you look in your mirror, you're just gonna be pretty much blinded by light. People get agitated by that, it's kind of normal, but it's really for our safety. Because at night, you never know what you're dealing with, who's in that car, and it's very important for us to be able to see in. Okay? So we've got flashlights that are, you know, super bright, we'll come up and probably shine this in your face and blind you even more, and it's nothing personal. It's just something that we do so we can light up the inside of the vehicle and see what we're doing. After that, we can kind of tone it down a little bit once we realize that this is a nice guy that ran stops, okay? And it's not a car full of bank robbery or something crazy, you know what I mean? So, on that approach to that car is a huge unknown for us. So as we're walking up, we're doing it cautiously, we're looking inside the car, but there's a whole other aspect of danger to me, and that's the traffic that's flying by us as I'm worried about this guy here, or 2 or 3 or 4 people in the car, you never know. So that's one of the reasons I always go to the passenger side on the car, and I'll come up here, and normally this guy will be looking that way for me, and be surprised that I was over here. For us, that's a good thing, because, you know, I know where I'm at, I can see in this car, he's not expecting me to be here, so that's one thing we do. But it's not always, okay? So I go up, and, normally I have to tap on somebody's window a little bit, so they get their attention, so they look to their right. Hey, how you doing today, sir? I'm all right. Small support of the traffic in Madison. The reason I stopped you, you ran a stop sign right there. Okay?
I didn't see it.
Okay, you need your driver's license?
Yes, sir.
All right, can you grab that phone?
Yeah. I can still carry my weapons down here, but it's not where I'm gonna be close, but I'm just gonna grab my lights.
Okay, that's fine.
You don't put your gun out for me, I won't pull one.
We'll, blurt it out on the news. All right. All right, Mr. Billy, I'll be right back with you, students, okay? And now, one of the things when I'm talking about the insurance, normally we'd ask somebody for registration insurance. Some officers still do that, I don't, because I can look at all of, I can run your tag, and you don't. There's no reason to have a bunch of your paperwork in my hand. I just like to take a driver's license, I'll stick it right under here, so I don't drop it, down in between the seats, and I'll go back to my car, I'll swipe that license, and then what I'm talking about before is when I swipe that license, I can see your driving record, and that makes a big determination for me. So here's this guy here, he's born in '63, never had a ticket or a warning in his life. What do you think I'm going to do because he rolled the stop sign? All right, Mr. Billy's getting a warning for that, obviously. So I come back up, I write him a warning. Here you go, sir. It's July today's warning Wednesday. So, thank you, sir. All right, just understand you don't have to go to court or pay any fine. You show that I got you. Stop at a stop sign now.
Yes, sir.
Those guys follow, so you get stopped, and whoever stops you is more likely.
Sounds good.
Thank you, drop that.
Thanks.
That's it. That's simple. It takes a few minutes. Before we run into problems, and a lot of the stuff that you see on the news and everything else, it all starts with some level of resistance from the person that was interacting with Madison. Officer Landry will show you his way in.
Quick question for you, because I guess as soon as I see the lights and all my numerous encounters, I start digging for my registration and my license and get, but I also think, you guys are watching me dig in my glove box. Am I better just to sit there and wait for you instead of like going through all those?
Usually, yes. Usually, yes. Some of us may kind of look at that as, what's he hiding?
Right.
Is he sticking a gun under the seat?
Right.
Is he putting drugs away? Is he hiding open container? I mean, it could be anything, but once I interact with you, for the most part, I got a pretty good vibe on whether or not you're actually doing that, or if you're just some guy that's putting driving or insurance paying. But it's best to just sit there and just be still and just wait. With your hands in a relatively visible way, you might put them up on the ceiling, and I've seen people do that. It's kind of silly. But just leaving your hands on the steering wheel helps us out a lot, especially at night. When we walk up, we can just see that the things that are going to hurt us immediately are visible. So that's one of the safety things that we look for.
The time is now 7:45, and the Madison Public Library will be closing in 15 minutes at 8 p.m.
So, we'll say, we'll say you did reckless driving. So, speeding, wrong 565, you was on 111. That don't have that high. It was a 19-year-old. So, another car.
That's my pictures.
So, what's So, I'm also Landry, Madison Police. You got your driver's license?
Yes, sir. Get that for you. Back in here.
What I normally do is I'll go ahead and ask for that as he's getting this information. Say why you pick up your driver's license, whatever. The reason why I stopped you is because you drive a record, that's what's going on. I normally try to ask my questions as people are getting their information out. So once I get it, so Mr. Dixon, what's the reason for you driving 111 and James Lane? What's going on with that?
Wife sent me for milk.
Why sent you for milk? Realize you could have caused a car accident. Me personally, no matter whether you just want a stop sign or driving reckless or anything like that, I won't talk to you the same way. Okay? I'm not gonna deviate from me. I'm pretty much, I just have the same traffic stop every time as far as how I approach things. I'm constantly looking into the car, whether you're 17-year-old basketball player or you have a bunch of tickets for, God knows what, but I'm gonna introduce them. That's how I do things. So after I explain what the stop, normally walk back, still look inside of the car, just in case, make sure there's not anything crazy, not turn around, looking at me, trying to, see if I'm doing anything kind of suspicious or anything like that. Had a guy take off on me just because of that. Gave me his license, I was like, all right, fine. So, I normally go back, of course, you all remember normal checks and stuff like that. A lot of people I would walk up and I'll have my hand on my belt. But what they see is I have my hand on my gun and they're, terrified. This is just something cute, it's a hand holder, like it's just something where I can just relax. I'm at ease and stuff like that, but a lot of people, when they see somebody, officer with his hands on his gun, they automatically think like, I'm about to pull it out.
Under what circumstance might you ask the driver to get out of the vehicle?
If I suspect something, whether it's DUI or whether I smell marijuana or maybe I've seen the syringe, some kind of indicator that some crime is already being committed or something like that. That's normally what I'll pull it out for. I know a long time ago it was a common practice for as soon as you get stopped to just step out of the car and walk back. And it's not commonplace. When everyone usually, we're not pull you out just to come talk to you. I mean, there's gonna be a reason, okay? Most times when we do that, we ask you to step out. It's just keeping your hands visible. It's a common thing whenever you're talking to somebody, put your hands in your pockets. Just makes everybody feel at ease. But of course, we deal with all kinds of people. So, if the officer tells you to put his hands up, put your hands up in your pocket, that's just a simple thing. You don't have to argue over, keeping your hands in that. Do y'all have any specific questions about during the truck stop? I'll get you. Sorry. Go ahead.
I was pulled over because I got a new vehicle and there was a temporary tag on that. And it was a trainee. She had to put my wheels up on the windshield. Was that's the trainee reaction or what was the reason?
So, without speaking in her place, if I see your hands, I see your hands. I don't leave them on the window. Most people gather their hands when stealing because you're driving. Yes.
So it's not standard practice?
Not for me and not for anybody that I particularly know of. She's trying to get a see that, we're human, we make mistakes. She probably is talking when we talk, put your hands on the elbow, she might have missed it, put your hands on your windshield, and didn't want to look like a trainee, so she didn't want to take it back, which is, that's a bad choice, but it's not common like that. Sir?
Are passengers required to show their ID, or what is the interaction with passengers? I've heard a couple different things on that. So what would initiate a police officer asking a passenger any information?
I've had a passenger that my interactions between me and the driver. Now, if I have a passenger and he's reaching in his pocket or keep tucking something, look, it could be a jacket or whatever, but there's something that leads me to believe that something more is going on with this car than just this traffic stop and this interaction with me and this officer, me and this driver. So for my safety as well as his safety, at that point, that's when we'll start questioning other people on the side of the car. So usually it's because of something else outside of just that normal traffic stop.
Are they legally compelled to answer?
Yes, there's something. Okay.
There are several Supreme Court cases that says that when you stop the car, it's essentially a influence arrest, and we can control everybody inside the car. Do you have to articulate to them your suspicion?
You do, but you can do that at different locations. So if we go to another car, I don't have to have like basically might be in there. At that point, we pull out of the car because there's something it's itemized suspicion. I could be in danger or talking to them about whenever it's in the car, now they're amping up and saying, you know, I'm not doing this, not doing that. So now, we're still, you know, traffic's still going on right here, alongside the vehicle, so if I'm having to argue with you, now we're having to get officers there and just basically, yeah.
Good. Time for maybe one more question, or just one more? So,
Jocelyn made a comment, sorry, I would butcher your last name if I tried to say it, I would try to remember it. But I guess I've always kept my registration in the glove box. You made a comment about somebody having said, put it in a bag and put it in the door, which to me, I'm always afraid everything in my door is getting blown out or something. I mean, is that just kind of a feeling kind of thing? I mean, you expect it to be in the glove box, I assume, or in a console or something, but.
It's interesting enough, and I'll be the first to admit this, every vehicle we have, my kids, all of their stuff is on a visor attached with a zipper on it. Driver, insurance, registration is inside that. So if any of us were ever stopped, I've told them, I could be totally wrong, but I've told them it's all right there. So all they have to do is unzip that, pull that stuff out right there. So they're not reaching for nothing, they know 10 and 2. And that's what the Highsmiths do.
Yeah.
I can't speak for what everyone else does, but that's just that's the common practice we have. And every one of my vehicles has the same, on Amazon, they have the same visor, and you can put your sunglasses and things on it, but everybody's not driver's license, registration and proof of insurance is in that visor right there. So that's what we do.
It's a case by case, because I mean, if it was me, I drop stuff out. I have stuff in my patrol car right now, and I'm always working on it falling out. So I like where you have yours at.
Now, is that to make it more? Does it make it more does that create a problem from an officer's perspective with it right there, pulling it down? That I've never asked.
No, that's a good spot.
Well, and I was told it's because they're not losing sight of you. You're not leaning over and getting down as the officer's coming to the car. It's just a quick hand movement, and it's there.
I would question the whole door because I can't see that either. You reach down inside the door right there. So I mean, look, that's why we talk to 100 officers. You're going to get different things about.
And I just learned this from meeting people and research. I've been doing some work with ACLU. So this is, like I said, it's nothing I ever heard growing up. It's all new to me.
Yeah, I mean, growing up, I was told, hands on the door, different things. Reaching, as long as you tell people to, no matter what officer you get, you say, hey, that's a common thing now. Hey, all my information is in the glove. Mind if I get it? So, it's a common thing, is what we expect anyway, so, that was interesting, inside the door. But like I said, different officers you're gonna get under different opinions.
I just want to say that people don't give Jeff as much of a hard time as they would like me. I do want to thank all of you for showing up. I think this is healthy, having a conversation with the community like this. You're right. We don't always do everything right. We do make mistakes, and sometimes we don't catch it ourselves. All of us have a certain myopia where we only know what we know, and we don't see ourselves from the outside. Somebody else may see us. So, again, thank you for coming. Please come to future meetings. We'll have other topics that we cover, and we could expand on this one at a future meeting or something like that. But again, thank you, and I do enjoy hearing the comments, good or bad, because how do we improve unless we know what we're going on?
So as we get ready to close out, because I see, ma'am, I got you. We're wrapping. As we're closing out, we do have a newsletter that we send out that has all the information of things that we've done and things that we've covered. We have an email address. It's on the website. We have all of us have cards. We can give those out. If you have topics, concerns, as well, and we like to bring those things up, and that's what we talk about at the meetings. We come up with topics based about what we see going on, or what we think we need to educate our community on. So with that, we're gonna go ahead and adjourn, because I want to be able to come back to the library. Thank you.